You're going to want to power this thing down. Get your on-off switch right here. That'll easily shut the unit down. That's going to shut the solenoid off. Even if the unit's running, the solenoid will shut off. And then you'll probably want to shut off the incoming water supply to it, just as a precaution in case the solenoid is leaking. Swap out your filters. The 10-inch micron carbon block, we've not really installed any of these on a well with a carbon block. It's actually going to be a sediment filter. There's no reason for a carbon block on a well. It'll just clog up in a week. So you're likely going to find 2 sediment filters. We're usually doing a pleated in the first position and a 5 micron cellulose in the second position.
So you would put your Sharpie and write on the other one too when you guys are working?
Yeah, a lot of times what we've done, Mike, is we've actually peeled the sticker off. We've actually
put a new sticker on.
Yeah, we peeled the sticker off on, if not every one, most of them, and put a new thing on there. After you've changed the filters, there's going to be a lot of air introduced into the system that could be harmful to the membranes. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to turn off your concentrate all the way. That way you're going to send most of the water to the drain. The overwhelming majority of the water is going to go to the drain, and you're not going to overflux the membranes. If these have a lot of air pushed through them, you could ruin the membranes. So the concentrate valve needs to be opened up all the way when you're changing out your filters and firing the thing back up. Changing membranes. Very, very similar procedures to changing the filters. When you change the membranes, be careful when you take this cap off. I like to just loosen up these bolts and pull these caps in unison so that there isn't any confusion and we don't accidentally put the hoses back wrong. And then pay attention to your brine seal. Does everybody know what the brine seal is? The membrane has a brine seal. It's kind of hard to see, especially on these units, but this is the side of the brine seal. See, the other side is identical, but with no brine seal.
Got that little cap thing on it.
Yeah, it's like this rubber thing right here. That brine seal has to go in the same way that it came out. So if the brine seal's up in the membrane housing, make sure you reinstall it with the brine seal up. If the brine seal's down, make sure the brine seal's down when you reinstall the unit.
So they're not always the same?
They're backwards because they run from one to the other.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Gotcha.
So one of these is up, one of them is down.
Okay.
Again, when you turn the unit back on, you want to have your concentrate valve all the way open, and that will force all the air down the drain as opposed to overfluxing your brand new membranes and destroying them. Adjusting the concentrate flow.
How long, when you swap filters, how long are you leaving those full?
I'm actually looking at the sight glass on my concentrate. It'll when you first fire it up, you're going to get a ton of air bubbles, and I just wait for it to smooth out and it's all water. Then I know I've got the majority of the water out.
Okay.
I'm using the sight
Okay.
concentrate.
Okay.
Adjusting the concentrate flow. Most of these we've installed on some really horrible water, as you guys know. Typically on a healthy well, our permeate is going to be about an 0.8 of a gallon, and our concentrate, I want to see that probably about a gallon, 1.3 to 1.5 gallons on really, really bad water. So this unit is very, very capable of operating at 1 gallon of permeate to 1 gallon concentrate in normal water situations. We're not putting these on normal water situations. We not typically. I mean, there may be a time when we install one of these at a brewery or in an industrial application. It's on city water, and we'll be able to operate these 1-to-1, no problem. But on Virginia City Highlands water, we need to put about 1.5 gallons down the drain.
So for every gallon you make, you're putting 1.5 down the drain.
It's about 7 to 8 tenths.
If it's making a gallon.
Yeah.
They're not making a gallon. They're making about 7 to 8 tenths.
Okay.
And we're talking 800 to 1500 TDS water. Lots of garbage in the water, lots of trash in the water. So anybody have any questions on the concentrate? So if you go out to a unit, and we're doing 8 tenths and only putting a gallon down the drain, let's turn that concentrate up a little bit. We've basically had 2 of these units up in the Highlands that have smoked their membranes in 6 months or less. And in reality, these membranes should last a couple years.
So, and the reason being is we're not flushing it well enough with enough concentrate.
I believe that's an issue. Yeah, I believe that's an issue. The next item, to recycle or not to recycle. Basically, recycle valve off. We do not need to recycle on nasty well water. Again, that's nasty well water. If we put this in on city water and or well water that's got 250, TDS or something, and no iron, no hardness. So what the recycle is doing is our concentrate is the water going to drain. Our permeate is the water that we're making, the product water, the good water. If you turn up this recycle, what it does is it takes some of the concentrate water and pushes it back to the inlet of the unit and recycles some of that concentrate and runs it through the unit again. That concentrate water is worse than the water coming into the unit. So if you're starting with bad water to begin with, you don't really want to recycle any of that bad water. In an industrial application, maybe where we've got this at a brewery or something like that in town.
You can leave it on recycle.
You can recycle some water.
Okay.
You can recycle some water for sure. Identifying key components. Want to talk. One of the main things back here, it's kind of hard to see. The motor, the electric motor, and the pump. Those are components that are going to have to get changed out. 5 years maybe. What do you think, Mike? 5 years on the pump and motor?
So the theory is, though, just so you guys know, some of you might not know, the pump is adding taking the 60 psi and increasing it to 150, so that the water goes through the membranes at high pressure, so it makes more water, and they're more efficient at 150. Yeah, so that pump will eventually.
You're typically going to replace your pump and motor in unison. If you have a rattly bearing in the pump,
you'll hear it. You'll know.
Yeah, you can really hear it. If you have a problem with the pump, you're going to want to change the motor in the pump.
And you carry all that in stock, so if there's a call, you'll throw it on your truck. Right.
Also on the pump here is the adjustment screw for the pressure, for the system pressure on the unit.
Really?
The maximum we're running these things at is 150 psi. I'd like to see it actually around 125 to 130, just to be safe. It's like you don't run your car red line all the time. You run it nice, but it will function up to 150 psi. What's going to affect your system pressure is a combination of the concentration valve and this screw right here. That's what's going to control your pump pressure. The more water you're putting to drain, the lower your system pressure. The more you turn down the concentrate, the higher the system pressure. But then also it's in conjunction with the actual pressure that the pump's putting out. So maximum's 150 on that. Other key components, you got the low pressure cutoff switch right here. Basically, what this is if the pre-filters are clogged or there's an issue with the well, if there's not at least, I believe, 15 pounds of pressure going into the unit, this switch is going to disengage and shut the unit down. Jeff and I came across a bad low pressure cutoff switch 3 or 4 months ago. Axeon replaced it and we got it swapped out. So this is a component that can go bad. You have an inlet solenoid right here. This basically shuts the water on and off. When that low pressure cutoff switch, if it drops down below 15 pounds, it's actually shutting the solenoid off and shutting the pump and motor off. We've ordered these exclusively. There may be an exception, but we've ordered these exclusively with the Permeate Flush option. Does anybody, I want to go over that a little bit. I want you guys know what's happening, why the Permeate Flush is important and how it works. But basically, those who have installed these equipment know that this solenoid valve goes on the line going to the holding tank, okay? And then this is plugged into the piggyback float and plugged into the wall. So what happens when that tank is full, this solenoid is going to shut. It's going to force the water to go through this Permeate Flush line And the RO will continue to run for probably another half an hour, 45 minutes until that tank is full. Once that tank is full, the high pressure cutoff switch right here, this is the high pressure cutoff switch, will shut the RO off, and then that tank will push clean water, clean RO water, back through the membranes, and so that there's clean water sitting on the membranes as opposed to dirty water.
So what happens, that dirty hard water, when it sits on the membranes, it ruins the membrane and they scale up. So that the permeate flush is just, it's another addition.
All right, so other key components, you have pressure gauges on your unit here. Basically, you got the pressure coming in to the pre-filters, pressure going out. If you got a large pressure drop across those filters, 20 pounds or more, you got bad filters. Pump pressure gauge right here.
Yeah, we do.
150 psi is basically 12 o'clock on this gauge, so you know I like to run them around 10 o'clock on the gauge.
And where are you adjusting that? Off of that screw underneath the pump?
Two places. It's a combination of the concentrate valve and the screw.
Okay.
So
It's
the
a
filters-
combination of the two.
The filters are changed and the valve is set, then it's the screw. You adjust it.
Okay. You got your flow meters. Recycles the water that we're putting back into the inlet of the system. Again, on bad well water, we're not really recycling anything. Concentrates the dirty water, permeates the clean water. Again, just to review, 0.8 of a gallon. What we're seeing out in the field is 0.8 of a gallon permeate. Concentrate, we're running around a gallon, but we are going to be running those at about 1.5, just to flush them some more. All right, so we're going to permeate flush. Any key components: high pressure cutoff, low pressure cutoff, pump and motor, permeate flush manifold, gauges, all are up here, on-off switch. Pretty self-explanatory there.
Then it goes to a big storage tank. There's probably one in the corner over there, like 500 to 1,000 gallon storage tank. And then from there, we pump the water back into the house with another pump.
S200 chemical feed. This stuff right here is going into a yellow storage tank, and that's pumped. This S200 chemical is pumped into the injection port on the unit. You can see that the injection port is after
right there.
the pre-filters, but it's before the membranes. This chemical is in lieu of a water softener. It keeps the scale and hardness from building up on the membranes and scaling them up and causing them to fail prematurely. On a BT-1500, it's 1 ounce of S200 for every 1 gallon of fresh water. I briefly wanted to go over pre-treatment. BT-1500s, or any RO for that matter, whether it's an under-sink RO or a whole house RO, does not like iron, does not like hardness. Those are two things that will just destroy the membranes.
Manganese, tannins.
Manganese. So
Chlorine.
that being said, typically you're going to see an iron breaker minimum upstream of these guys. We're either doing in most instances, we're doing the S200 chemical to take care of the hardness, but in some instances there's a water softener upstream of it or a sanitizer. We've got one down in Washoe Valley where there's a sanitizer and an iron breaker upstream of
So
it.
that's what we were talking about, is when you go to these jobs and they're still getting iron bleed through, we want to put 2 iron filters before these, right? That's,
Yeah.
Please.
Post-treatment. Post-treatment, again, we have an RO. It's going to lower the pH of the water, make the water very, very acidic. So we're often doing, not often, we are doing a pH filter, a 1054 pH filter after these units, full of calcite, to raise the pH back up to neutral. That's worked out really, really well. In addition to the pH filter, not every single one, but the majority of them, we put an ultraviolet light on. And we're also doing either a 10 or 20 inch big blue post with the carbon filter in it. Basically, for those of you who don't know, the water from this RO fills up a large holding tank. Then coming out of the holding tank, there's we use a Grundfos repressurizing pump or booster pump. And that booster pump is actually what's supplying pressure to the house. So after the booster pump, we're putting our post-treatment. That's going to be that's going to be the pH filter, the ultraviolet light, and the big blue. The sole purpose of the big blue is so that we can disinfect the holding tank, dump some bleach in there, and then that bleach doesn't go ahead and make it into the house. And it's also a final barrier too. We're putting bypasses on these so that in an emergency they can have water to their house if the RO stops functioning. They can have water to their house, water that's still gone through the iron breaker or any other pretreatment, and then through the big blue. One final thing, I passed out the whole house RO checklist for loading. If you guys are doing a whole house RO, we'll pull out this checklist. This is when you do a whole house RO, there's so many different things that you need to remember to bring that you don't think about when you're trying to just get your truck loaded up and get out of here. So this is saved on the T drive, and if there's something that we need to add to it, let me know. I'll add it. We went down and kind of just made a really, really detailed list a couple months back, and this should be everything you need.